Bare knuckle conditioning. So when we condition our hands for bare knuckle, a lot of people think you just need to condition the skin on the end outside of the knuckle. But actually, you should also think about the conditioning of the bones themselves, creating little microfractures which heal and then make the bones denser over time. Now, some conditioning comes about just from hitting anything, so if you're boxing, you're going to get some hand conditioning in it. But for bare knuckle, we need to go a little step further. Now, in the old days, they used to use oak trees or trees. Like Tom Cribb was known for being able to punch the bark off an oak tree. Now, these days, I don't expect anyone to be able to punch the bark off an oak tree, but you can hit a tree. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you can as long as you stay very light on it and just condition your hands. And that's a very, very old way of doing it. Some people will use a small plank of wood and hit the wood very lightly, just kind of tap it. And then also some people will use one of those kind of kung fu bags, which is full of either rice or beans or sometimes sand, and do iron palm kind of techniques on it, which also works. Now what I've done is I've created what I call a bare knuckle bag here, and it's very dense and it's full of sand. So what I did was I got a truck inner tube. It's just quite big one like that. A car inner tube won't do it. So you get a truck inner tube. I filled up, I cut it in half, so it's a semicircle of it. I then filled up the center of it with 25 pounds of sand, cinched up the ends, made them into little sausages by using tie clips, zip ties, and then I put the ends together and tie clipped it again, and then used duct tape to kind of seal it all up, and then I clipped on this chain so I can hang it. So what's good about this is it's much tougher than a punch bag, than a normal punch bag, because it's basically just sand. And the rubber on the tyre is nice and thick, so it's going to be able to withstand a long time and a lot of use. So the benefit of this in particular, as opposed to a tree or a plank of wood, is that you can move around it and hit it quite naturally. You can shift and move, use your footwork to turn and hit it. And you can actually hit it, I sort of hit it pretty much full power, maybe take a bit of the sting out of it. And it will give you really good hand conditioning. Now, you don't want to go too far and take all the skin off the outside of your knuckles, because then you won't be able to train for a while. So with this, as soon as you get to a point where you feel, your hands have really had a good hammering basically, and just before the skin breaks, you stop. And you can come back a day or two later and start the process again. I'll hit this thing for 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, but I've built up to that. Another thing people do is they use a Aqua Bag, the water bags that you see, which are filled up with water. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that because they're much less forgiving. Even though this is made of sand, this has got sand in it, and as you can see, it's pretty dense, especially when the sand settles. It actually has a bit of give, you can see here, whereas an Aqua Bag doesn't really. And punching a big bag of water with bare hands, it can really kind of cause some damage, especially on your wrists if you don't have the alignment right. So here it is, bare knuckle bag for conditioning. And so when I use it, I can get into any position I like. I can do downward punches, like choppers, I can do hammers, anything you like really. And with a bit of time, you'll get your hands nice and conditioned. You'll get that nice red colour that when you've been doing it at the end of each session. But bare knuckle conditioning, think about creating something like this. You can use any bag of sand really, I think it works, and string it up from the ceiling, use it as a punch bag. Get your hands nice and conditioned so that when it comes time to actually using those punches, you're going to be able to take some punishment.